Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Mitchell Giddings Fine Arts. Thank you for supporting the gallery and mostly for coming to hear artist David Rohn tonight. I feel like we've both written and received so much press and coverage on this show. We're truly thankful for that. And I don't want to go too long into an introduction because we're here to hear what David has to say. I hope all of you have read the texts and the artist statement that David has provided. It's truly our pleasure. This is the first time that the gallery has devoted the entire space to one single artist, and it couldn't be more appropriate. The scale and scope and quality of the work just does everything justice. We're really proud to have David as our first gallery-wide solo artist, and without any further comments, I would like to introduce David Rohn. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Can you all hear? I've got a microphone somewhere, but anyway. I guess maybe I should start by introducing myself. I had some thoughts. I have to warn you, but I'll get to the thoughts later. I came to this area in 1964 to teach at Windham College and taught there. I was the head and foot of the art department, and then the department grew. We were quite popular, actually. And then the college went bankrupt in '76, and I went back to New York. I'd lived in New York for just a couple of years before coming up to Putney, and pursued a career as an artist, and taught at Drew University and Queens College and various other places as an adjunct then, because I was determined to try to make my way as an artist and get out of the teaching profession a bit anyway, or get out of going to committees, which is what you do as a full-time teacher. So then I painted more, sold more, had shows, and eventually stopped teaching, and then came back to Putney. Got a couple of grants, and I guess that's all written down someplace, and traveled France, Japan, places. And here I am. So that's it. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about my art history. So in the morning over coffee, I sit and I will have thoughts about art. And they come and go. And now you, as my victims, are going to hear a few of them. But not for long. And in case it gets too boring, I brought a puppet with me. I didn't mention that I invented some puppets back in the early '60s before I came up here, and when I was doing the adjunct teaching back in New York, and starting to make my way on the gallery scene with group shows, and then actually had my first show in New York in that same year. I'm 77. I also I started doing puppet shows. So at the end, in the question and answer, Miss Tulip will come out. I'm sure she has a few questions. So, but I did invent a kind of puppet, and I did puppet shows at Barnes and Noble and Museum of the City of New York, and Jewish Museum Hanukkah show. pretty good. And so, okay, so about painting, I was thinking about painting and what, just in general, not my painting, just painting. And how certain things about it. For one thing, it occurred to me, it's the only art form that is not sequential. And that's an important thing about painting. It is, you see the whole thing all the time. So, I mean, if you're imagining a painting, you imagine a good painting. I mean, but that's true of all paintings. But a painting exists as sort of a storage battery of energy. I mean, it's full of relationships and intentions and all these things that are like a person. I mean, if you try to think of a painting, a painting has a personality. It has in its relationships, and it can have tenderness, it can have force, it has will. It's like music, but it's all at once. Maybe the short poem you can sort of take all at once or something like that, but everything else is sequential. When I was an art student, I had this terrific triumph in one of my early classes. Fairly early classes, and it was a composition class, and we were assigned to do a piece of music. So I went back and unpretentiously decided that I would do Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. So what I did was I got a scroll. I made a scroll, and I oil painted it on the fraternity house floor in my room. And it was abstract, and I went through the whole symphony and I made shapes and colors and things that would represent that. It was much later that I came to the realization. I got a lot of applause for it. It was big. It was, you know, for a beginning class, it was pretty significant. It was much later I realized I got it all wrong. I mean, I wasn't understanding the glory of painting. The wonderful thing about painting is it's a painting. It's like a sort of a storage battery that never runs out. I mean, a good painting, its relationship. You see the whole thing. You see the parts. You see the dialogue here and there and whatnot, and it keeps on going. That's a lovely thing, and that leads me then to another important thing that I love this quote. Now I was sent, another artist sent this to me in a card, and it came as a statement by Paul Klee, but the statement was, didn't Feuerbach say at some time that to understand a painting one needs a chair? And I love that, because I mean, in this day everything is in progress. We're always moving from one thing to another, and that's the way we conceive of ourselves. There's no point of now. I mean, there's the past and there's what's coming. We're always just anticipating. The one exception in your life can be looking at the painting. You just have to stop, and you should try to meet the metabolism of the painting, which is still, you just be there with it and let it go. I like that very much, and it kind of leads on into still life painting, or the way I work too. So now, what else was I going to say? I think I'm going to. So in my own history, to start back, I did various things. I had I grew up innocent of art. Actually, a rather elite upbringing for a small Michigan lakeside community. but no painting. I don't think there were any painters in the town. No artists, and no real contact with that. But I went off to art school. I was a cartoonist. That's what I was. Being a short, not terribly athletic kid, but still wanting to make noise. I did cartoons. I was a kid good at drawing, and that evolved. And into high school, I did that. I went to probably an expensive military school, like our president, but not the same one. There was no art department there. Speak of that, I don't think they approved of it. But I was a cartoonist there. And then when I went into college, I decided that I would go to a college in Florida because the military school was in northern Indiana, which has terrible winters and everything. So, and I like Florida, but also Frank Lloyd Wright had designed the campus, or part of the campus of Florida Southern College in Lakeland. It was not a very good school. They had a newspaper, I drew cartoons, and it had art class, and it was like the laziest, most disengaged art instructor ever. That's why I won a prize. I didn't even know that somebody else had submitted one of my sketches. But at any rate, that was nothing. But that summer I went to the Chicago Art Institute for a couple of courses, and they were giving, mainly these were courses for teachers getting credits. So the level wasn't terrifically high, and the Bauhaus professor who didn't talk, he wasn't impolite, but he really didn't pay any attention to our meager efforts. There were a couple of students from the winter school who were in the course, and he spoke to them. But it didn't bother me. We just worked along. Anyway, it was fun. But what pricked up my ears was my fellow students talking about some of the advanced students from the winter school. And I listened. I said, "What is this reverence? What's that? What's that about?" And so that fed into me. And I went to the University of Michigan after that, but into the lit school, and was doing cartoons for the humor magazine and whatnot. And I took an art history course, and there was a terrific teacher. It was a huge course. I think that people complain about there must have been 300 students in the course, but we interested students would charge the stage afterwards and talk to the professor. But he had there was one thing that really stuck. He brought up a slide of Jacques-Louis David's Oath of the Horatii. And when I mentioned that to Jim Giddings, and I was trying to remember the name, and he popped up with the name. We were both probably working out of the Jansen book, or whatever. Anyway, so this Jacques-Louis David painting is a great just study in a deliberate academic composition. And it made such an impression on me because what I at first looked to be Roman soldiers with their swords on the right, I think, and the group of wailing women and their babies on the left. They're all pointing right here in the center of the top. And there's architecture in this painting. I thought, that's fabulous. It's a secret language. I mean, there was this, and then there are other triangles and their things, everything in relation to the rectangle. I thought, that's surreptitious. That's a secret language. You know, he's getting away with that. It made an impression, which later, then I will work into that. But so the next year, I actually transferred into the art school, and I was the ugly duckling discovered to be swan. I don't look much like a swan now, but many years ago, at any rate. And that, you know, and it was, you know, like about that time, after a little bit, that I did the scroll by mistake and that sort of thing. So, I was going to talk about this, about the rectangle, because this is the world I live in, and also that it is, well, I guess, two things. When I think about nature as being the great impetus to make art, but to a large extent, other art is a great impetus. The idea that I could actually make a wonderful machine like the Oath of the Horatii, and I could control people's minds secretly. So I have grandiose notions here, but sitting over my coffee, you see, that's a, yeah. One of them is being Dr. Frankenstein, when I think of a painting as being this storage battery that actually has life. I like that idea. You know, they don't all come to life. When you throw the switch, some of them just lie there. You know, but occasionally they do when the muse makes a visit. And then the other thing that is so interesting, and I love it, is to play games. I don't do it often, with symmetry and pictures inside the pictures, that sort of thing. Because everything you put down is in this tense field, like an electric field inside the frame. Because everything is in relation to the corners. They're a key place, and the middle, and so there are these symmetries, and then sometimes you make a picture inside a picture. I mean, it's not in all my paintings, because I do sometimes just open myself up to whatever I'm seeing. But if I find a chance to mess around with that as I'm looking. When I set up a still life, I actually kind of fling it about. I have certain, and I have a lot of stuff around the house, and I stalk it like a landscape. I think my model for still life painting is basically like landscape painting. You don't move the barn closer to the house because it would make a better composition, and I wouldn't do that. Although I confess to really removing things from time to time that make it too complicated, I think. So that's the other thing, is this tense arena that a painting exists in. I love that, and it's something to play with. That painting, where you can see it, that looks like I made a bisection right down the middle to play with, and make paintings inside the paintings. I mean, the edge of the blue book looks pretty much right in the middle. You people can't see it, but it's got a blue book that comes right down the middle. You can see it later. Okay. So, after my first year, as I say, there were no artists in Ludington, Michigan, but there was a gift shop run by this sophisticated guy. I think he was the only gay person in Ludington too. So we couldn't afford much in the way of luxury, but we had George, and he was wonderful. And he had a collection that he made of interesting things, the Leger and little things, and Duran. So at any rate, he gave me an exhibit in his gift shop in the hotel. And I remembered that there was somebody came who was a graduate student at the University of Indiana. And he took me aside. I was, 18 or something, and I finished my first year in art school. He said, let me give you some advice here. Here's the way you make it in the art world. You get a style. You find a style that works, and you keep doing that. And he showed me a print, and it was taken right out of Franz Marc, the German expressionist, and, who did those kind of rolling horses and things like, And I thought, no, never. I said, that's not the way. You can't do this. I was taking my watercolors out into the sand dunes in the blustery wind and trying to get the energy of the wind. But I wanted the experience. I wanted a direct experience, and that's where I began to get the idea that I didn't want anything to do with preconception. It was too, I don't know. No. It's the wrong part of the mind to use. It wasn't open. I do remember him saying that. Stony chai, that's my favorite. Yeah. What was I going to say? I did make notes. Oh, I used that one all up. What was I going to say? Oh, so now I'll tell you the story how I got to it's titled Downfall and Rebirth. I like that. It just occurred to me how ironical it is. So when I got to Windham College in Putney, I was an abstract painter and had been for 10 years. And I'd been working mainly out of my imagination and worked into abstraction. I was an etcher too. I did some pretty damn good etchings. And they were, when I think of my best etching, which was of picadores on horseback and coming, it was very much out of the Jacques-Louis David idea with the picks pointing up like it. And that's a lovely idea. They're playing with the rectangle, which, of course, basically that means that you're seeing the rectangle as a thing in the world. I mean, to get more complicated, and you can work back into Cézanne from that, or sort of, and his way of beginning to show that this is not a window into some place, but if you emphasize the geometry, the way Romanesque artists do too, very much. Of course, the religious artists and Van Eyck, well, they all did. So, but it does emphasize the picture as a thing, and not just a window into the world, like Hudson River School and that sort of window into the imaginary world. So it does both. So you get the double-mindedness of art, which is where the fun is. Whereas the tension is what my teachers would call push-pull. We can never figure out what that was. Which leads me to the next thing, because I designed. So I'm faced with classes. I was teaching painting, printmaking, and drawing. And the beginning drawing class, I had a completely free hand. They're innocent. They had no expectations. And what I wanted to teach the students was to be abstract artists, because that's the only art that mattered to me. Yeah. Anyway, it was important. I thought it was a good thing to do. But the way I did it was surreptitiously. I would set up a still life and have them ostensibly draw very accurately what was in front of them, but I wouldn't let them draw the things. They had to draw the spaces that the things occupied. And I don't know if I have any of my former students there, my feeling waves of hatred. There they are. I'm sorry. I was so tough. I never do that. Anyway, the students were not allowed to draw the bottle and the apple and the bowl until I had approved that the spaces that they were occupying was exactly right. And to slow them down, I would draw with them. I would measure, and everything had to be in its box in the last 15 minutes of a 2-hour class. You say, okay, go ahead, draw in the stuff, what they thought it was all about, was making it. Because, so what I was trying to do is to teach them to see, and I did it in various ways, and with value structure too. But again, keeping them away from being absorbed with what one would assume the whole enterprise was about, is getting a picture of the bottle and the bowl. So in my own life, I was doing large abstract paintings, fairly large abstract paintings. In fact, I had what may have been the first show, along with Nancy Storrow. We did a 2-person show at the museum, and I think it may have been the first show the museum had. It was the railroad station museum. It was 1972.
They opened in 72 as a museum, so.
Was it? Oh, I think it was probably just before we went to Europe again with a group of students, so it may have been 73. Yeah, it may have been. I don't know if we were the first one or not. And those paintings burned up when my Putney barn burned. They weren't bad. I still have paintings from the 70s, and they're big now, sort of more color field abstract paintings. And so the few I have left are not bad. As a matter of fact, I bravely took them down to, there was one marvelous dealer, Ivan Karp, in New York, who was famous for looking at people's paintings. So I loaded them on top of my car and brought them down. He had the O.K. Harris Gallery, but before that he had been Castelli's assistant in Castelli's gallery. And he's like a power in the art world, but a very nice guy. So I got them off the car and brought them in, and he took time and he looked at them, and he said, well, you're a good middle-of-the-road lyrical abstractionist. And of course, the word middle of the road meant, well, there's not going to be a New York career with these. I had always done watercolors on the side for relaxation and to get out of the studio. Ever since I was a teenager. And I went, there was some time about that time, it wasn't Karp's words that maybe change over, but I don't know what precipitated. It was harder and harder for me to go out to my studio and work on these paintings. I didn't like the process. I would do small sketches and I get something out. This is going to be a winner. I get one. And what I wanted to do was make an impact, and I was deeply in the art world. Our president at Windham, he said when we started hiring more faculty as the college prospered, he said, I want you to hire people better than you are. So I did that. I went on, and instead of we had a lot of applicants from recent, MFAs from various colleges, but I wrote to colleges. I wrote to galleries in New York, and I said, anybody know a sculptor that wants to get out of town, needs to get out of town, good sculptor. And I got a few things. Then I went down. That's where I met Chuck Ginniver, because he just wanted fields for his sculpture. So, but he was already an important young sculptor in some avant-garde things. So rather than getting a recent college graduate, I got him, who actually is a college graduate, but very, very good. And that's how we made the department, and then Peter Farakis came up and joined us, and then we had other people. So we had this really thriving art department up there, and and pretty, pretty, vital. Not when I went to Drew University afterwards, which is a big, rather important, solid university. I thought, in their undergraduate program, I thought it was in kindergarten. I mean, they were so limp. I said, "What? Your students don't have to have shows? They don't have their own studios?" Anyway, yeah, we were pretty hot as an art department. I'm proud of what we did. We couldn't get along with each other very well. I mean, it was like. But that was good for the students, I think, yeah. So, what was ironic then, because I had at that time kind of sort of a breakdown, an art breakdown. I don't know, I did, well, it happened in a yoga class. I went, the first one, the only yoga class I went to. It ended with a 10-minute meditation, and because it was all women and me, and so I was very proud of myself because I could do stronger things, and I could, what about very, very un-yogic sort of mental state. And then the 10-minute meditation, and I had this complete vision that I just hated my life. I hated my art life. I couldn't do it anymore. This whole business, it was like an employee, being an employee working for myself, scaling up these things. The big one is never as good as the little one. And I thought, that's not going to do it anymore. So I thought, well, I got to do something because I'm an art professor. I can't. So I will, doing nothing. That ground had been taken by Marcel Duchamp. He made an art project out of that, so I didn't want to imitate him. So the only thing I liked doing was sitting with my beginning drawing class and doing these really careful drawings. And I enjoyed going out doing the watercolors that I always did outside, and fast watercolors that I'd done since I was a teenager. So I put the two of them together, and here we are. That's it. That's my speech. I think that's all I have to say. What do I? Oh, yes, I found. So as I was thinking of this talk, and you know how in your house pencils gather. This was on the table in front of me, and it said, "Never give up." I don't know where it came from. Never give up. And I thought, no, my secret is give up. Give up. Don't try to be Beethoven of American art. It's too hard. You're not smart enough. Find a process that's easy. Anyway, so, that's true. I did the easy thing. My production became 10 times what it had been because it was just like going to work. I gave up my studio, rented that out to a sculptor, and just worked around the house and stuff on the windowsill and stuff, and just finding things that more or less like hunting landscapes, but I just do it in the house, and that's what I did. Yeah, that's Is that all I have to say? That all these years? Oh, I was going to mention, oh yeah, about the way I work. I do this. Whose giggle is that? I want you up here. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, just in my way of working, I will go back to the same still life again and again. And I think of it, it's not that I need more pictures of that cup. I did a lot of that cup. I did quite a few of them on different sizes. I think, like a musician, playing a sonata, I think I'd like to try that a different way. I think I could get more if I enter into it again, and I get completely absorbed. You don't realize how monumental a still life can be. I mean, even in our drawing class back then, if anybody should bump the still life, the gasp that goes up because the apple is rolled. Right? I mean, there's so much investment on the space between the apple and the bowl. You'll never get it exactly right. So that's very. But that's just, you'll see that in one. There's a duplicate in this show of the yellow mug and the rice noodles. I think that's in there twice, and I'm surprised there are not more. But it goes on, and I will keep going back. Usually looking at the same objects, unless they've rotted, which sometimes they do. So that's it. So I can take a credit. Any questions before Miss Tulip comes out?
Yes, I have a question about,
Yeah.
you were a professor of art, and what is it that you tried to get across most to your students?
Where were you? Oh, you came in late. Oh, you missed the best part.
Story of my life.
Well, did you hear? I was trying to turn them into abstract artists. So it's the language of form and color. I wanted them to learn to see, and out of looking at still lives, I wanted them to become sensitive to shape and color and value and the kind of tensions and dialogue that goes on within the frame. The frame is so important. Did any of you ever blow off a stick of dynamite? My father used to dynamite stumps around our place. If you have a stick of dynamite and you light the fuse and have it in the field, it goes poof, it doesn't do much. It makes a big bang, it's a big firecracker, but nothing. If you enclose it in something, it will do a tremendous amount of damage. It needs that enclosure. And that's what happens with a frame in painting. I mean, so you're looking out at the landscape or something, you say, well, I don't see any art here, pretty stuff. You put it in frame and you make these parts bounce off that corner and resonate and build a pattern and everything, that you see everything in relation to the frame. You can make a very strong language out of it. That's it.
Well, if I could follow up, is that all right?
Yeah.
I wonder if you could be so kind as to just analyze all that with respect to one of these drawings on the wall. I bought one of your paintings earlier this year, and I put it on my wall, and I just can't figure out, why do I like this so much? What is it? Why is it so compelling every time I look at it? So if you could analyze it, that would be great.
I was looking, I don't know, because there's so many parts to a painting. I mean, so much, a painting has a personality. It's the only way you can think about a painting, and it has besides being a structure, I mean, besides having its own geometry or whatever, I can try.
Yeah.
But sometimes the painting makes it just by tenderness. It may just have a way the parts, a soft. The parts seem to care for each other, and sometimes a painting marches along and it's strident and everything, and you don't. That's not on the palette. It just comes on that day or something that works itself out to be like
To
that.
follow up on that question, you have so much put into the framework of your pieces. There's so much sensitivity around how you frame your pieces.
Oh, the
And
frames.
to
We're getting
join
into that.
with
I'm
this-
not
yes.
turning any frames off.
How do you claim your framing space when you choose a composition?
Yeah, well, when I choose a composition, I spend a lot of time with that, looking at that. And very often, if I do, all of these certainly started with a smaller sketch, a smaller painting. And very often, the first time, I'll just take in too much, and then I'll look at the little one, and I'll say, I'd like to move the frame in a bit. So, in this one, now, what's going on here? Whoa. I don't know.
Did you do this outdoors or in your?
No, these are all indoor. No, the still lifes are all inside.
And on a flat surface like this?
Yeah,
or
I have
over it?
I have a table. I have a big.
And did you do a pencil sketch before you did them?
Always, because in watercolor, when you've got a puddle you're working with, you can't look up. There's no time to look up. So I need a pencil sketch, pretty much, because you can't. A watercolor you can't dab away like an oil painting and then smooth it out afterwards. The dabs make an edge, and the edge makes it kind of dirty and messy. Although you can do a lot of correction in watercolor. Don't. If you have decent paper, you can get on your hands and knees and get a toothbrush going and mop up stuff. You can't get it back to white, but you can make the whole painting darker. Yeah.
When you're painting this, are you painting from your sketch or from the?
No, I was looking
still
for
have the setup.
Yeah, I have a table on wheels that tilts that I made. I had a commission in 1980 in New York. A friend of mine was an architect on a big project for a law firm, and he commissioned me to do the decoration in the cafeteria. So it was a watercolor. Well, what is it? It's this size paper. This is called a double elephant. This is two pieces of paper taped together. So it was these, but put on its side, so it was 40 inches tall and it's about 20 feet wide. So I made this. I made a table 10 feet, right, that I could to work on half of it at a time. But to do working from observation, I have to be in the same place, because if I take a step to the right or left, the still life is completely different. So I have to stand on this spot and I have to move the table. Yeah. So I did that. Yeah, it's a neat painting. It's on 57th Street on Madison Avenue.
So I also have a response to the question about analysis. That in fact, if it's posing a question as to why he likes it is actually good.
Why?
The question they had about why he didn't know why he liked the painting that he bought from you.
Oh.
The fact that there was a question there
Probably
is good.
crazy, I don't know. Have you looked into that? I have to. I'll come over and look at it. My next door neighbor bought a painting from me, and I keep thinking I should give them a guide to the painting because they're, he's a PhD, something, but they just bought it because they liked it. Yeah, anyway, and I should tell them. And that's what you want me to do with this, but I'm having trouble. One thing I was going to say is I'm very slow at seeing things. My own work especially. I mean, like when I get done at the day I think, oh God, what a mess. It's just another ruined piece of paper or something else. And I don't see things right away. I don't see what I've done. And it's the same way in, anyway. So, and now I have to re-look at this again. I don't know what I can do as an analysis. It's very...
Okay, so why you have preponderance of yellow and orange to
that
wash
was
it?
that was just an idea to do it. I mean, once the drawing is accurate, but this is part of my printmaking career, and I like that look. Sometimes I just do arbitrary colors, and I will do it like a print. So I might just you'll see bichromes. I mean, the one behind here is one of my bichromes. I put a tone on the paper over the whole paper, and I think I did on this one. I did a tone on the whole paper, and then I just use two colors, and I get it going like that. You know, it's just because I can. Yeah.
Would you talk a little bit about your tones? You focus on light and dark and how that plays into your work.
Yeah, because it comes out of aqua tinting, printmaking, and my great admiration for Goya's prints and the clarity, and also comes out of that drawing class. I used to make them do five tones, so black, white, and three in between. Everything had to be put down. It's a strenuous mental exercise, especially when the students are looking at color. Things like that, and you have to decide whether the orange is the same value as anyway. So it's a lot of fun. Lines disappear, but I just like the clarity of it. That's where it comes from. I just like that look of a very distinct value scheme. I think a good painting. I'm not sure all my paintings will demonstrate this, but I think a good painting starts from about 100 yards away. I mean, if you've got a clear kind of scheme, you know, if you look at it, you could. It ought to be clear. I mean, that's my feeling. Whether I do that all the time or not, I don't know. Yeah.
Do you paint a given painting all at once, or do you go away and come back to it?
Both.
Or either?
A lot of paintings I'll give up on. In watercolors, I try to get it all at once. You know, I try to get everything down at once. It's not always possible on a big one, but I try to get it laid out. So it's mainly done what it's going to look like. Sometimes I don't see anything in it, and I'll put it away, and sometimes I can't see it for a long time. I can't really. I'll look at it again. I don't see anything there. Do another one. You know, paint something else. You know, and then I'll pull it out later, and find that the muse visited, and I wasn't aware of it because I have my own intentions, and sometimes it's not what I intended to do, and what Picasso termed the tyranny of the thing seen. It always has to be resisted because the thing you're looking at wants to be represented just that way. It pulls and it pulls. Yeah, I say no. And that's one reason I use arbitrary colors or monochromes or something. Because so there's that.
I'd like to take a crack at why Chris is drawn to your paintings.
At your what?
I'd like to take a crack at why Chris is drawn to your paintings.
Oh, okay,
is
go
it
ahead.
Watercolor?
This,
It is.
Similar to that.
Miles
Okay.
Danaher, a wonderful painter. And when you go down to the never opened Deanish Gallery, in that lobby, you'll see a beautiful landscape of his that doesn't even have his name on it.
So
go look at
David,
it. Yeah.
what impresses me in going to your show at the up in Putney of your oil paintings versus your watercolors. Your watercolors are macro. They draw you into the picture frame. They're not scale. They're scaled to each other, but they're the reason why a photographer will take a picture and go, that doesn't look anything like I wanted it, because in your mind's eye you're drawn into the image, the objects, and I think that's why you are drawn so much to his watercolor, because
He's tight.
pardon?
He's tight.
It's more than tightness. It draws you in. They're larger than life.
Oh,
They
well, Chris is not, actually. Chris doesn't have enlarged things in.
It's not very large.
No, it's more of
It's a
a, no.
monochromatic half sheet. It's with the blue apples. It's scallions and in a basket with apples. And there's a beautiful windowsill.
Yeah.
So it's basically monochromatic.
No,
but the
I know
apples
the, I know
Yeah,
which one.
okay.
it is.
Yeah.
Actually,
If you knew the one that he
you don't pay
has.
attention. I'm going to bring my assistant up here too, because I tantalized you, and you may want to stand up sometime. So Miss Tulip can help with the questions.
Oh, good.
She's old. I invented these. We'll see what they do. Yeah, in '62, I wanted to make a Christmas present for my kids. I'd moved to New York, and so I made hand puppets, because, well, I was in, among other things, I was in the stuffed animal business in New York. I didn't bring any of those. They're pretty good. And when I made a hand puppet, I thought, well, why doesn't the mouth move? And it was because I had a finger up there, and the mouth ought to move, but you see when you open the mouth, the head goes down. Well, not mine. Well, that's true. And how do you do it? Brains. I'm very smart. Okay. This is Miss Tulip. She's wonderful. So with this single-handedly, I could do two puppets that would act, so I didn't have to rehearse. I just had to get props that would sometimes work and sometimes not. my puppet assistant is back there. Shudder. I usually have her in stitches. So are there any more questions about art? That's my...
I've got a question. Either one of you can answer, but I came in a little late. What's that?
I'll take it.
Okay. I came in a little late, so you don't have to answer this if you've already been through this. But I have a question about perspective, because the pieces are big, and also just being still lifes, there's an awful lot of perspective in them. Like you said, one step to the right or the left and it all changes. How much do you occupy yourself with the idea of perspective? Do you measure? Do you eye it? Do you worry about it, not worry about it? How do you handle that in these bigger works?
Never thought of it. My late great friend Frank Stout, the artist, told his class up at Marlborough College, he said, make sure everyone comes to class next time, because I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about perspective. And so they all came to class, and he said, all right, he said, about perspective. When things are closer, they're bigger. When they're farther away, they're smaller. That's it. Yeah. No, I don't think about it. No, I don't think about perspective less.
I have a question. As a former student of
Yes.
yours.
And she's alive and healthy?
Yeah, I learned a lot, really. It was a great education. You used to say, I think, that art had to turn into art. You'd put it away and it would turn into art. Maybe that speaks to what you were just talking about. So I'm wondering if you have any other ideas about how to make things turn into art, or how long it actually takes.
I don't know. When the watercolor is wet, it's not art. It can't be art. The matte, of course, you have to put it in a watercolor, put it in a matte. Needs that framing edge. You're repeating yourself. Yes, I know. Give up. Okay.
Did you teach Miss Doolittle how to paint and draw?
No, the troll does that. I didn't bring the troll. He's got a foul mouth, for one thing. He did. The troll did a painting video at one time. Yes, Bara.
I would love to take a class that you taught. Do you ever teach anymore?
No.
No.
No, you might draw me out of retirement. You can come over and paint beside me in the good weather. I made that invitation to somebody else too when I go out painting. I guess I'm making it to the whole world. Am I not?
David, you mentioned looking at the areas between the objects.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you were influenced by Morandi or any other still life painters or watercolor painters or people that you knew in New York, you know, people that might have influenced you in your development.
Well, before my collapse, I was trying to paint de Koonings, and then went into more lyrical things. So I was, you know, I don't know, I'm influenced by, and of course Cezanne Matisse. My works don't look like Cezanne, but very strong. I mean, that way of seeing, and the double nature of the flat actual object and the illusion. I mean, that's what's so much fun about still life or working from nature. You have the doubleness all the time of a stroke is somewhere in space because you've established space. I mean, it takes nothing for the brain to imagine three-dimensional space. You just give the smallest clues. You have a bottle, and a line goes up to the bottle and then comes out at the same place on the other side, and you have space. The brain says, "Oh, well, there's space." And that's why we take something that's really simple to understand is perfect for doing a still life. A crumpled plastic bag would be impossible. You got to be very specific about everything to make it read like a plastic bag. But a cup on a saucer, you don't have to do anything. It's just two ovals and a line that stops and starts on the other side, and you've got three-dimensional play. So once you have established that, you can play with it. You can contradict it. You can make the background jump forward and the foreground go in, and you got a real, you have an instrument to play, and yeah, that's fun.
So are you more like a Gauguin in the still lives and more like a Van Gogh in the landscapes? I mean, does that thing of the surface being an arrangement of shapes and colors, does that change at all when you're doing the landscape?
No, I don't think so. I hadn't thought of it. No, I don't. No, because once the puddles get there, you're dealing with what's in front of you, and I'm not quite sure. You could tell me if you think so. Huh?
The landscapes are done outside?
Yeah,
So it's a little bit less,
through a window or whatever, but I'm outside the ones you see here, yeah.
maybe it's a little more immediate when it's like that.
Well, you got a good eye. You can tell me. That's Scott Borowski, great painter. A number. Next question. I have a question for you, not for me.
Can you tell us about time you spent? You spent some time in France, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And you have that painting of Lescaut, Lestac.
Lescaut. Oh yeah,
In
Lescaut,
Putney.
Yeah, it's part of Marseille, but that's where Cézanne secretly had an apartment. So
Yeah. So how much time did you spend there? I mean.
in the Aix-en-Provence area, I've spent quite a bit of time because when on my first Windham College, we had these abroad. So you take, and that's my first chance to go to Europe was to take a group of students to Spain in the summer of '68. Andrew was 1, so 67, yeah. Summer '67. But on the way, I bought a Peugeot in French in Paris and drove down, and I fell in love with France. After spending my life learning Spanish and going to Mexico, I just loved France so much. So when I had a sabbatical a few years later, we went and lived in Aix-en-Provence, or north. And then a couple years later, I took 12 or 13 students for a semester in Aix, painting and survived, barely. It's a terrible responsibility. Think twice before you do it. But yeah, we all managed with the help of some marvelous, responsible students. At any rate, so that was there, and then I went back and I had a fellowship to La Napoule down near Cannes on the Mediterranean for 3 months, and then just went back for a summer, stayed at a friend's apartment. By that time I had friends, and then this last 3 months. So I've been back to that area a lot. Love Marseille. I hadn't lived in Marseille. Marseille is great place. Yeah. Take my picture, please. Stop now. Okay. Any more? You can. Hi, Becky.
Someone mentioned your exhibit in Putney of oil paintings, which is also gorgeous. I've seen that. And I wondered if you could speak a little about the difference for you between working in oil and working with watercolor, if you approach those two media differently.
Oh, yeah, it's very different. If you don't know, there's a exhibit of my oil paintings from about the last 10 years. I decided in 2004, I really wanted to go back and do oil paintings, because I used to do oil paintings, beforehand. And when I switched to doing the still lifes, I put away the oil paints. I didn't do oil paintings for years and years. From about 74 to 2000, so for about 30 years I didn't do oil paintings. But so I decided, I'll go back and see if I can do them, because I like the look of oil paintings, so for a while I did these terrible paintings that were trying to look like watercolors, and that's not what I like about oil painting. I like the mucky grittiness of it, the thickness of it. So anyway, at any rate, there's an exhibit of my paintings from the last 10, 12 years, at the Next Stage Theater in Putney, and you can't see it. You can see it when the building is open, and the building is open when, at 5 o'clock on days of events, that they say. So if you have to go to the website and find out the calendar, or look on and see when they're having something. If you're there, but they have a lovely exhibition space,
It's upstairs.
It's upstairs, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It's a very fancy place now. They got a giant grant. They put it in an elevator, and it's what I heard a concert last night there, and it's terrific stuff. So if you go there, you'll be able to see it.
So they aren't open. Technical question.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
When you're working with watercolor, is it transparent medium for the most part? Do you use all transparent paint? Do you add any opaque paint? And do you work with white at all?
No.
No white at all in any of these?
No.
It's all paper.
No. That's a funny sort of ethic. I mean, it doesn't really matter in terms of the art, but it's just what I do.
It creates a wonderful luminosity that you handle so well.
Thanks. Somebody squawk
I
up.
just was thinking that you're not open during the day anytime at the other show then.
No, you have to look at, I mean, it's a theater
Only
building.
when
so
they're
they
having
only
a
have-
production.
Well, sometimes I have a key. But then I've seen the paintings too.
I think they're open Saturday morning because the Historical Society has
Yes,
open hours.
you're right.
It may be 10 to 12.
Saturday from 11 to 1, they're open. That's what I was told, because that they have a Historical Society meeting. Yeah. If you're coming from a long way out of town, or if you have a party, if you really need to, you can call me up, and I'll come down and meet you. But actually, you should probably go. And I don't know, I've gone up there at other hours, and the door's been open, because there's an office in there, but they don't have regular hours, so they don't broadcast that. Yes, Jim.
One of the amazing things to me about your watercolors is just within this show, I think there's 42 years between the first ones that we have from 1974 to the 2016, and it's really difficult to tell the year. If I were to, and if I were to try to guess or to put them in some sort of a chronological order, I can't do it. And for many of us, our styles, our ways of seeing and painting change tremendously over a much shorter period of time. So I guess I'm saying that as an observation, but if it's something, there's something that's pure about your vision that hasn't changed, so that you can continue to paint like that. And I don't know if Miss Tulip has observed the same, but I think it's an incredible statement about the quality of your work from the beginning.
Well, I get ideas from time to time. I mean, like, this is an idea. This kind of flamboyant, texturing and projection out. I mean, that's quite different. And you don't have any of them here, but I went through a phase. My New York dealer didn't appreciate that, because I decided I just wanted to do punchy paints, and I used a lot of India ink in watercolors, and they tended to be harsh. I mean, a phase. It was it was a year or so. I said, damn it, I want to do it. I did that. So there are changes, but there's no progress. God forbid we'd have progress. But that old idea that we learned in art history classes of the quasi-scientific idea of art progressing from Impressionism to Cezanne to each time being that sort of went out the window. After pop or something. I mean, there's changes now. Everybody does everything,
That's de
and I-
Kooning. He said that now art is like minestrone soup.
Yes, young lady?
As you move forward with your work, do you think you'll be working more in oils, watercolors?
No, you
making more
got me
puppets?
working in watercolors again. It's pulling this out. Yeah. I was very irritated when you made your studio visit, because I had all my oil painters around, I was shuffling through these stacks that I hadn't looked at for a long time. Ooh, what's this? What's this? You know, started pulling that up, and yeah, it's sort of waking me up to think I maybe. So I was working on a watercolor today, and yesterday. Yeah. Not very good one either. No, it didn't come. But so, are we winding down? What? Going once? And now, how about a hand for our artist?